So how do you do reference angles for radians? Well, the first thing you need to know is that radians, if you don't like radians, kids, put it in degrees. Okay, so this is what I need you to remember. Okay, so I will tell you the radians measurement and its equivalent degree measurement. Okay, so if you can remember these, I'll give you 4. There's a lot more. Like, you could do all of them. You could technically make a chart that shows all of them from 1 to whatever. But the ones that typically show up, we'll go over right now. Now, what are the easy ones? Kids, if it's 0 degrees, come on. That means it's 0 radians. And I better put pi there, because radians are in terms of pi. Okay? If it's in 360 degrees, 360 degrees is 2 pi. If it's 90 degrees is a half a pi. Why is 90 degrees a half a pi? Because 180 is 1 full pi. Think of it like delicious pie. Ooh, I should probably give you the other one that's at the bottom of the quadrant. What's the other popular number that we usually deal with? 270. So if I have 270, and I'll put this in black here, 270. These are all the main numbers on your little coordinate plane there when you draw it. So if we go from 0 to 2 pi, and halfway between 0 and 1 is a half, what's halfway between 1 and 2? 1.5. So I need 1.5 to be. So you could go 1.5 pi, but remember we show radians as a fraction, which is 3/2 pi. But this is the same thing, like honestly, like 1.5 pi and 0.5 pi, because what did I do with my fractions? I turned them into decimals. So your circle just goes 0, halfway around is 1, all the way around is 2. 2 what? 2 pi. 2 apples, 4 bananas. Okay? It's just what it's in. It's in pi. Why is it pi? Because pi comes from a circle. What is a circle measured in? It's measured in pi. So it comes from the circumference based off the circle's radius. So these are the key numbers. These are your conversions. If I told you 4/4 equals $1, 90 degrees is a half pi. 180 degrees is a whole pi. 360 is 2 pi. Man, if you love pi, you want to go for 360 because you get 2 of them for the price of 1. Okay, so here we go. Thrasher, you got to figure out, just like you did in degrees, what quadrant it's in. So, for example, this is in 2/3 pi, and we know this is in radians. Now, what could you do, everybody? You could make it degrees if you wanted to. So if you wanted to go, oh, okay, I don't know what that is in radians, and change it over to degrees, and like get your answer and then change it back to radians, you can do that, but that seems awfully hard. So if you can remember what quadrant it's in, 0, halfway across is 1 pi, all the way across is 2 pi. What did we just label these as? Okay, let's see, 90 degrees, which was up here. This is where 90 is. That's a half a pi. So you can write it as a half a pi or 0.5 pi. That's the same thing. And down here was 1.5 pi or 1.5 pi. That's the same thing. So which one, like, can your brain process better? Where is 2/3? Where is 2/3 pi? Well, 2/3 pi, if you don't know, 2/3 is the same as 0.66 pi. So 0.5, 1, where is 0.6? It's somewhere between here and here. So your reference angle would be starting here. It would be based off of this angle right here. So 2/3 pi is right here. Now, is it bigger than 1? No, 2/3 is not. Is it bigger than a half? Is 2/3 bigger than a half? Yes. Yes, 2/3 is bigger than a half. So it should be past a half, and it should be right before 1. Okay, so what quadrant is this in? This is in quadrant 2. So we have quadrant 2. 2 pi over 3 is in quadrant 2. Let's go look to see what should we do in quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, we need to take 1 pi minus the angle. So I need to take 1 pi minus 2/3 pi. Can you tell I'm making this video at school? Did you hear that in the background? Okay. All right. So I got to subtract that. Kids, the algebra 2 is over. All I got to do is get a common denominator. So how do we get a common denominator? You put the first thing over 1. If this is 3 and 1, what would they both go into? They'd both go into 3. Because when you get a common denominator, they will stay common. Something pi minus something pi is something pi. A certain amount of apples minus another amount of apples is going to be apples. So kids, don't make that the hard part. Just because you see pi involved, it's going to stay in your answer. Once you get a common denominator here, that's great. So if you multiplied the bottom by 3, that means you I put the divide sign instead of multiply. If you multiply the bottom by 3, multiply the top by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Is this the same as 1? Yes, remember it was 1 pi right here. Okay, 3 minus 2 is 1. So this is my reference angle. What is a reference angle? Reference angle. A reference angle tells you how far away it is from the x-axis. Okay, we just talked about that in the last video. So kids, if it's in radians, that's okay. Use these formulas. Use these formulas. If it's in radians, figure out what quadrant it's in and use those formulas.